Hey guys, Dan here with this week's Connor's review for tonight's episode, Tats and Tia's, and we're going to talk about that. This one, as you might imagine from the title, because recent titles have had three things in it, like, what was one of the ones? Brothers, Babies, and Breakdowns. And last week, Beards, Thruples, and Robots. So, Tats and Tia's, well, there's only two stories this week, and I think it was a very good episode because everything got really enough time to sink your teeth into. So, the Tats part, well, that comes when Harris moves back home. She can no longer stay with her buddy, Odessa, because she doesn't have a job anymore, so she can't help with rent, which to me is a little bit odd because Odessa was living there by herself before Harris moved in, so I don't know. Was Harris really contributing that much to the rent? I don't know. But either way, for plot purposes, she's back home at the Connor household, and she falls into this deep funk of, I'm a loser, I don't have a job, what am I doing with my life? And her and Darlene actually become closer because of it. Darlene, tries to comfort her, and for a little bit it actually works. She's getting her, to make prank phone calls, and they're sitting on the couch watching movies together, sort of playing games like they did when Harris was a baby. So that was real cute, and in fact, Darlene was holding on to it so much that she did not want to mention the tattoo job that her and Dan sort of stumbled onto when they were at the tattoo shop, and Dan ran into one of his old biker buddies that runs the place now. So that is the tat part of the story. Harris ends up getting a job at the tattoo parlor by the end of the episode, even though Darlene didn't want to tell her about it because they were getting so close. And then the Tia part, well, Tia is Spanish for aunt, and Becky's having a real crisis with her baby, and not knowing how to care for it during the day while she's at work because childcare is too expensive. She was hoping Harris might be a great solution there, and there were some good jokes with that. Now that Harris is back, she can watch the baby, but Harris wouldn't even get out of bed, so that wasn't an option. So Jackie mentioned, well, the baby daddy Emilio has family here, why don't you see if he can pull some strings? So he called his family members, which includes his aunt, and they are going to watch the baby. However, there is a bunch of tension there because they don't really like Becky. They think she's, nothing but a slut, and she was the one who got Emilio deported, and this and that. And, of course, she is kind of slutty, but in terms of the deportation, nothing could be further from the truth there. She was horrified that they were kicking Emilio out of the country. So they present her with an option to maybe move to Mexico and marry him, and that way maybe they can both come back into the country. And Aunt Jackie went with her the first time to drop the baby off, and she speaks pretty fluent Spanish, so she was able to make out that they were calling her, a horny donkey, and they called Jackie a lesbian, and all of this. So those are the two plots. That's it. And I think it worked really well. Not that I thought, last week's episode I thought was good too, even though there were three different plots. None of them were necessarily deep enough to get, and Darlene's plot was sort of twofold. Like, Darlene had two stories in one, with the magazine and then with her job, and then Jackie's story was her own. So there were still kind of only two A stories last week too, but this I thought was great because it was nice to have Emilio back. We saw him very briefly earlier in the season, but he was deported pretty soon after Becky got pregnant, so he has not been there for the baby's entire life. So it was nice to see him over FaceTime. It was nice to see that his family wants to help out, and they clearly do. They clearly want to help Emilio. They want to care for this grandchild, or it's not their grandchild, but their niece or whatever the family line would be, niece second removed or something. But anyway, the baby, and Becky needs them to. She doesn't want to take her to work. She doesn't really have any other options, so here we are. And I think it was a great resolution on all sides, especially because Becky called them out on their crap, and they were like, oh my god, like, we thought you were the one who did this, and da 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 da. And, look, I'm sure they're still going to talk about her behind her back and whatever. They even make the comment towards the end of the scene that they never would have said those things if they knew Jackie could understand them. And, in terms of the Harris stuff, I thought that went over really well, too. I mean, it's nice that she's back in the house. I do have to say, though, once again, no Mark in this episode. And I always miss him when he's not there. He's a great character. And for the third episode in a row, no DJ or Mary. I'm by far a broken record at this point, but get rid of them. They, if they're earning a paycheck for these shows, they shouldn't be. Just because they're in the opening credits, they haven't been in 3 episodes, and I don't miss them. Nobody misses them. Nobody cares. The writers aren't writing anything interesting for them. Just, next season when they do contract renewals, I really hope they say, you know what, Michael Fishman and Jaden Ray, I think is the girl that plays Maya, or Mary, whatever, this is not working out, lots of luck, you can come back on as a guest star every so often, but we don't need you, goodbye. Because it makes me angry that, like, they're still a part of the show and the opening credits every week, and they're never in it. It's actually a lot like, this goes back to Roseanne from the past, that last season when they won the lottery, everybody was still in the opening credits, but, like, half the people were never in the show. Darlene was never really there. Dan left about halfway through. It was like, the show really revolved around Roseanne, Jackie, DJ, and Mark. Like, even Becky was barely in either of the Beckys. So, Roseanne is no stranger to putting people in the credits and then leaving them off of half the season. But it's just getting a little ridiculous here. But I do miss Mark. When Mark's not there, that's a bummer. I mean, even to have him come in for a line or two, and be cute and be funny, I would like to see that. I'd love to give him more episodes centered around his character, too. We had the live episode was sort of about him doing the election stuff. And then early in the season, we had the episode where he kissed the boy. And, there have been a couple of, like, little Mark episodes here or there. He's got some nice moments with Ben. Ben wasn't here in this episode either, and that's fine, too. I mean, he's not a part of the family or anything. But I do miss little Mark when he's not around. So hopefully we get a Mark episode before the end of the season here. There's only, I think, 4 episodes, right? Because this was 16, so 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 episodes is what was slated for. Like I said last week, I have not heard that they had to shut down production because of coronavirus, which tells me they probably finished filming all the episodes. So hopefully that is correct. And if that's the case, then we'll get all 20 of those episodes. But this was episode 16, so there's only 4 left in the season. I'd like to see Mark return at some point and have a plot line based around it. But for now, I mean, I think, focusing on Becky, because we haven't really had a Becky episode in a while either. I thought that was great to see her and Emilio together. And then John Goodman, Laurie Metcalf, comic relief once again. Laurie Metcalf had a couple of good episodes lately, with the whole throuple thing, and there were some good jokes with that. But I do honestly like that this iteration of Roseanne and this Connors show does tend to focus on Darlene and her kids and Becky, especially since Becky, got pregnant and had the baby. We've had a lot of, like, Becky-centric episodes since then. And I like that. The original obviously was more about the whole family unit, and it still is to a degree. But I would say, the bulk of the original episodes focused on Roseanne and Dan kind of as one unit, and then, like, usually one of the kids was having something going on. So it was still really focused on sort of 2 entities. And I think that's where it shines best. I mean, look, John Goodman, I could do a John Goodman episode any day of the week. The stuff with him and Katie Seagal was good. Obviously, the morning of Roseanne was good. But he is such a strong utility player that he can come into a scene, give a line or two that's hilarious, or sage advice or whatever. And that's really, not that he's like, that's all his character is at this point, is the wizened old person, old wise man. But I mean, he had a couple of funny lines at the tattoo shop about how he can't ride anymore, unless it's 80 or 90 degrees, and even then he has to put a sweater on because of his blood thinners. And then later in the episode, he gave some good advice to Darlene about, you need your daughter to be back in the workforce, and get her moving again, get her motivated. So he had both of those in this episode, and Jackie is always just great comic relief. I mean, Laurie Metcalf is so adept at just, very broad comedy, and there was certainly some of that with, the prank phone call, which, it's a little bit of a stretch to think that Aunt Jackie wouldn't have Harris's, phone number, or Darlene's phone number. I forget which phone they used to call. I think it was Harris's, but to call her, she didn't recognize the number, I guess. Okay, that's fine. I'll suspend disbelief for that. But, she's running out of the Lamford lunchbox, screaming this phrase that the supposed radio station is having her do. I mean, that is broad comedy. That is like classic sitcom fare. Laurie Metcalf excels at that. She's so funny at just being like, just kind of out there, So overall, I think it was a good episode. I don't think we need to dwell too much on it. There was nothing necessarily groundbreaking about it, but I do like that Harris is back at home. Hopefully that means more episodes with Harris, Mark, and Darlene as a collective, maybe with Ben too. There was a mention of David in tonight's episode about, Becky was like, oh, this stinks, Amelia's so far away, and Darlene's like, how do we both, end up with absentee fathers for our kids, and mine lives, just a few miles down the road, and it's still me just taking care of Harris. I hoped that once Big Bang Theory wrapped, we would see more of David. And I guess we did early in the season with, her choosing between David and Ben. But I don't know. It would be nice to see David again. Maybe he'll show up before the end of the season too. But that's gonna do it. I'm doing episodes every day here on something during the shutdown, so I don't need to do 20-minute Roseanne and Connor's reviews anymore. Although last week's was, but sometimes once I get going, it's hard to shut me up. But please comment below. I love hearing from you guys. Let me know what you thought about this episode, and. I guess that's it. I mean, tomorrow I have a Masked Singer episode coming up. Thursday we'll do our weekly TV review. I'm going to do Little Fires Everywhere and some of the new Netflix shows. And then Friday we have a Frasier review doing Season 8 Part 2. And what else? I mean, Sunday I'm going to have more of the top 100 grossing movies of 2019. We're going to review those with my buddy Justin. And those have already been filmed. We're practicing our social distancing. He's not coming over live and doing them, so don't worry. But yes, hopefully the quarantine and everything sees you all safe out there. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.